Thank you
Like,
so much for having me.
and what I just mentioned was that Destiny's Child was one of the biggest girl groups of all time. You guys set all kinds of records, and you were one of the original members of the group. And first of all, we haven't heard from you. Everyone's, when we were talking about having you here on the show, everyone's like, "Where's she been? What has she been up to?" A lot of the girls have spoken about the breakup, and they've spoken about where they've been. We've seen them out in the public eye, and we haven't really seen you. The last time we saw you, though, was on The Real Housewives of Atlanta in Phaedra Park's office, and you're talking about a one-woman show.
Right.
You know, Before we get into that, where have you been for the last few years? Everyone's been wondering, and that's the big question of the night.
Well, I've been laying low. As you know, like the breakup happened, and it was what it was. And sometimes when when you have a lot of time to yourself, like LaTavia and I, we ventured off, and we started another girl group, and for several reasons, it just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Which it was not, it wasn't anything like between us, but it was a great experience, especially for LaTavia and myself.
Yeah.
It just ended up not working out, and then I started having idle time, and a lot of times when you have a lot of time to think,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things started resurfacing with me, like from my past and like from my childhood, and I thought that it was a good time to like sit back and really try to get to the root of those issues that I had from growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that it was behind the scenes as opposed to like being out in the public having to deal with it, because it made it a lot more feasible for me to deal with those
Mm-hmm.
issues as opposed to being out in the public eye.
Most
So that's just kind of why, I just took a hiatus, and I needed to make sure that I was my best self
mm-hmm.
before I, resurfaced to the public, period.
When you were on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, we thought we would see more of you. Were we supposed to see more of you on the show?
I thought that we were as well. For whatever reasons, that didn't happen.
Okay.
There's not even really much more that I can say about why I didn't come back on the Housewives.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to, and it just didn't fall through. I guess it wasn't in God's plan, so I'm not going to argue with that.
You spoke with Phaedra. I don't know how long you've known Phaedra and whatnot, but you spoke with her very candidly about the breakup a little bit, and you seemed really still emotional, as if you were almost still working on settling the feelings about that, your past, and the things that you've gone through. How far have you come since then?
Well, I just want to clear something up. We know how it can be and how people edit around
Oh,
things a
okay.
lot of times. There was so much more footage that was gotten even in that conversation as opposed to what was showed. I
That's
really
what we're
didn't
glad you're here.
expect.
You can tell us what was happening.
Well, no, Phaedra, she simply just asked me a question, and I was telling her about what happened. I've never had a reason to be bitter about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Me being in Destiny's Child is one of the best things that has ever happened to me in my life.
Mm,
So,
definitely.
like I said, that is a huge, huge, huge misconception
Okay.
about me. And people think that I'm bitter. I guess because I haven't been out in the public eye, I guess that I'm supposed to be bitter. But I support the girls. I have all of the Destiny's Child albums. I have
Okay.
all of the solo albums. And I hate that that is something that is thought,
Mm-hmm.
when my name is brought up. And the way that it was edited, I felt, what, if everyone else felt some kind of way about the way that it appeared, that I came across, I feel the same exact way.
Yeah.
But, there's nothing that you can do about it once it's aired.
I didn't get bitter from your appearance on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I got hurt. I got, she's still dealing with, whatever the issues were from back then, if it had to do with Destiny's Child or if it had to do with, your struggles after that. That's what I didn't get bitter from it, because I felt like you were past that, but there were other things going on emotionally for you at that time.
And true, there were, I think to a certain extent, I think that all of us, to a certain extent, because of how close we were as kids, I think that we're all, when we think about it, I think we're all hurt
Mm.
still because of what went down. But
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to all the girls
Okay.
since And I've seen Beyonce, and we've embraced each other, and we've hugged, and I've told her how proud I am of everything that she's been doing, and that she's an absolutely phenomenal woman. Us being best friends for 10 years when we were younger, Beyonce and myself, everything that she's ever told me that she was going to do, she's done that and then some. So, you might not have gotten bitter, but a lot of people, I hear a lot of comments that say that I'm bitter. And I definitely want to clear that up. There's not a bitter bone in my body. And I will re-say that being in Destiny's Child, even through the breakup, I just have to believe that that was just my fate in that group. I can't argue with, what has actually happened.
What about,
Things are what they are.
I know some people said bitter, and some people may say, are you jealous at the success of the other girls?
Absolutely not. There are a lot of times that I hear, if you play that song one more time, or if you play that CD one more time, if I have to go buy another CD again because I wear the girls' albums out, I always knew my role in the group, and I don't have, I'm saying it again, I don't have any reason to be bitter especially about success. I'm a Christian, and
it's Good Friday. Look, it's Good Friday.
I pray for the girls, I really do, every last one of them, because there was a bond that we had that no matter what happened to us publicly, and it was business, that can't take away the love that I have for each and every one of them.
And you said just now, you knew your role in the group. What was your role? Because
my role, I was an entertainer. I loved to sing. I loved to be on the stage, and I loved the girls with whom I was doing that with. A lot of people have asked me, well, did you want to lead anymore? You should have been leading. Okay, well, I heard that we all should have been leading more from, different people, that we had worked with in the past. But Beyonce was always the lead singer. Why would I all of a sudden start to develop a problem with that? That's just not me. That's not who I am. My issues that I ended up having and that LaTavia and I had were strictly with management. It had nothing to do with the girls.
Okay. All right. Because I did read a recent interview, maybe not so recent, maybe last year, this interview, and you said that I'm convinced that if it was not for Matthew Knowles, we would still be together as a band. Why do you think that was the issue? What was going on with Matthew Knowles that you and LaTavia did not like?
I don't want to go too much into detail about every specific thing that LaTavia and myself didn't like about Matthew. It's not about me disliking things about him as a person. It's about things that started to surface and things that we both just started to notice that, it just didn't seem right. We had other people that we knew in the industry, and then we just kind of started to pay attention to things. And my saying that I think that if it weren't for Matthew Knowles, that we would still be together, I can't really say that, but I definitely believe that he was a strong influence as far as, how Kelly and Beyonce felt, especially at that time. We were supposed to be able to sit down and speak about, what was going on. At least that's what LaTavia and myself were told. And then before we knew it, we were looking at Say My Name video on TV. And that meeting never happened. The only thing that I don't regret anything that I've done. The only thing that I would change is that I would have been fearless when it came to talking to my friends. And that my friends, I mean Beyonce and Kelly.
Why didn't that happen? Why didn't that conversation happen? Did you feel like they wouldn't be open to hearing it from you guys?
Yes, we felt that way because there are certain comments that have been made, and we just felt like we needed to make a more drastic measure. It's been said that we tried to fire the group's manager, and that's not true. We had a group contract and individual contracts. We disaffirmed our personal management contracts. We didn't want Matthew to not be the manager for the group. Okay. That was never the case. And like I said, had we been able to have this conversation, that would have been said. But things happen for a reason, and at this point in time, I'm definitely okay with what has happened.
And if you guys are just tuning into TKIF here on KEMPIRE.radio.com, I'm here with LaTavia Roberson, formerly of Destiny's Child, and we're talking a little bit about the breakup. And I think, LaTavia, and I thank you so much for being here and being so open to talk about it, because, the reason why we have this platform is to tell the truth and
Absolutely.
to clear up any rumors or anything like that, because we've heard from Beyonce, we heard from Kelly, we heard from LaToya, but no one's really had an opportunity to have an in-depth conversation with you. In the group, people paint Beyonce as a diva. They paint her as, the spoiled child of Matthew Knowles. How did you feel in the group? Did you feel like there was this hierarchy? Was, Beyonce was at the top and you guys were at the bottom?
No, I didn't feel like that. We all had our roles, and let me not say roles. We all had names that we called each other, and we always called Beyonce the mama of the group. When Matthew wasn't around, Beyonce would run our rehearsals. The woman, you see the woman, so just imagine, she didn't just start being the way that she is. She didn't just start being Sasha Fierce. She's been Sasha Fierce since I've known her. So, that didn't just start happening. And yes, she was Matthew Knowles' child, but she is Matthew Knowles' child, but Beyonce has one of the most pure hearts that I've ever known in my whole entire life. I've heard people say things about Beyonce even after the breakup, me walking out of a mall, and I've gone back in the mall to confront somebody about something that they've said about her. I mean, even like about 4 weeks ago,
oh, wow.
I had to confront someone because somebody made a comment about her that was not right. I'm like, no, let me set that record straight. Don't say that about my friend. And even though I haven't spoken to Beyonce in some years now, she'll always be my friend. No one can take away our growing up together, not even that ugly public breakup.
Yeah, look, that breakup was probably one of the ugliest breakups until we had Danny Kane, and that was on reality TV. But again, LaTavia, thank you so much for being here. And we spoke a little bit about the business side and why you guys wanted to change management. Are you surprised at the rumors about Beyonce and her father falling out over business-related issues?
No.
Oh. You don't want to elaborate on that? No?
No, I'm not. I don't even know what else to say. And you know what? I hate when I did get wind of that happened. I felt bad for my friend. That's how I felt about it.
And I think this is really important that we mention this, because people forget that you guys grew up with each other at very young ages, and you spent so much time with each other, and you guys were friends. And friendship is really, really important. After the breakup, did it, I refer to it as a breakup, as, you break up any sort of relationship. Did you go through the motions of a breakup after Destiny's Child came apart?
Yes, we've all said it, and it's been said around, the world. It was like a marriage that had gone bad, because it was so sudden. And I understand why Kelly and Beyonce felt the way that they felt about what we did. But at that point in time, that was the only way that we knew how. We were young. We were kids. And sometimes you don't know how to handle a situation. Yeah. Like I said.
How old were you when this breakup happened?
I had just turned 18.
Wow.
I had just turned 18.
So people, I think people don't even realize you were young girls.
Yes, very. I auditioned for the group actually when I was, I think, 7, about to turn 8, or I had just turned 8.
Gosh. Wow. So, LaTavia, and I really want to get to the root, because, here on KEMPIRE Radio, I'm sure a lot of people are listening right now. LaTavia Roberson, formerly of Destiny's Child, is here. They want to know the juice, how is Beyonce, and But I really want to get to the root of, the dark days after the breakup, because you alluded to it during your appearance on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Let's talk a little bit about it, because I feel that story is really important to tell, because your story can really help someone else. So
definitely. And I always love addressing that elephant in the room, which is very important to me. The way that I feel like I was portrayed during that time is that, I know that I alluded to that, I know one of the main statements that sticks out is that I said, I was drinking every day. And I literally meant I was. I was speaking about 5 years prior to that interview. And people took it as, that's where I was at that time. And that is so far from true. I did have my times that I was drinking every day, and it was not from the actual breakup. My dark days started way after. Like I said, me being a Destiny's Child was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And whether we broke up or not, that is a point in time in my life that I can never take back. I will never take back, and no one can replace that time in my life. But I told you earlier that, things started stemming from my childhood, and the only way that I knew how to deal with that pain and to try to numb it because I didn't want to think about it was from that. And I don't mean my childhood with the group because, I was a very young child when I started in the group. But, it's all in my book, and I don't want to give you too much. But being transparent about that part of my life, because I think that it's important for my fans and the people that still have love for LaTavia. I think that it's important for them to know and understand exactly why I've been gone away for so long. And a lot of times it's not easy to get yourself out of a place when you feel so low. And I tried for years, and I just couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to work because sometimes you just feel like I can't do this. It's not going to be up to par. It's not going to be up to my standards because I had substances in my system telling me that I couldn't.
LaTavia, I really do appreciate you talking about this. And you mentioned the alcohol. Were there drugs involved? Were there anything else?
No, I wasn't addicted to drugs at all.
Okay. Because I know people are going to start things when she said substances and things like that, but I wanted to...
I meant the substance, the alcohol. Now, people fail to realize if you go down the line, alcohol is a drug.
Yeah, it is.
It's legal.
Would you consider yourself an alcoholic?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm definitely not an alcoholic.
Okay. So you do have a drink here and there. You just don't...
Oh, absolutely. But you know what? Now I can have a drink. I can have a glass of wine here or there, and it's because I'm socializing with friends, so I'm out, having dinner or something like that. I don't have a drink to suppress or numb any pain because I'm at a wonderful place in my life. I've never been at a better place, and I have God to thank for it. And I'm not trying to sound so cliche, but, I had a time where all of my friends stopped dealing with me. The people that I thought were my friends, they didn't even deal with me anymore. So I had nobody to talk to but God. And so, the Lord knows who I am, and I know who I am through Christ. And to me, that's really all that matters.
The thing is, this week I had the opportunity to go to Oprah's Life Class, the tour, and the big topic was talking about what are the stories that you're telling yourself that hinder you from really living your best life. Can you share with us some of the stories that you were telling yourself during those dark days?
One of my biggest things that I told myself during the dark days, and I must reiterate that it had nothing to do with how successful the girls were, but I was telling myself, I'm not good enough. And I have finally learned that is so far from the truth. It has been some years, and I am a lot older now, but now I feel like no matter what, it's my time. And the things that happened to me and the things that people have done to me in my past to, break me down and to bring me down, it's not true, and that I shouldn't beat myself up for that.
Not at all.
And, my story isn't, there are so many people that go through the same things. I'm not trying to portray like I'm just so special. I acknowledge, whenever I can, anyone who's gone through anything. It doesn't have to be from being in a successful girl group or anything. There are females that go through so many things that I've gone through, and that's why it's like one of my main focuses to start my nonprofit organization to reach out to young females that have gone through some of the things that I've gone through as an adolescent. I just think that it's so important for women to understand their worth and understand that, you can't let anybody tell you who you're supposed to be. Yeah. It's so important to be beautiful from the inside first as opposed to what people see on the outside. And a lot of people get caught up in that. And I just think that it's unfair the way that society paints some pictures sometimes.
You know, you mentioned that you're writing an autobiography. You know,
Hmm.
what sort of details will we be getting from this book, and when can we expect it?
Okay. I like to call it a memoir.
Okay, a memoir.
Yeah, past events of my life.
Yeah.
Um, I'm thinking early 2013.
Okay.
I'm almost finished with my book. My book is my baby, and it took me. There was a point in time. I've always wanted to write a book since I was 15,
Oh wow, so it's a
and I
lifelong
thought that it
dream.
was going to be just about the time that I spent while I was in Destiny's Child. But so many things have happened to me in my life that I just want to share,
Hmm.
and I don't have a problem with saying, and telling the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I've heard a lot of rumors about myself, and I definitely just want to clear that up.
Hmm.
The only reason why I've been taking so long is because I'm not trying to rush it. I'm looking for the proper home, the right publishing company to publish my book, because my book is my baby.
Yeah.
And I can't let it fall in the wrong hands. I've heard that I'm writing a tell-all. Yes, I am writing a tell-all. And I am speaking about things that have happened in the group, but it's not a tell-all to bash Matthew,
Hmm.
Beyonce, Kelly, LaTavia. I don't know where that came from, but those are just things that I've
That's what
heard. And
people
it's,
want. They really want, because the breakup
oh, of
between
course.
in the group really did get ugly at one point.
Yes.
So people are expecting for you to be they expect you to be bitter and jealous and all that great stuff, but